It's there.
You're live.
Thank you. We're live.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is the planning board meeting for Wednesday, April 15th, 2020, 6 p.m. This is a public meeting being video and audio recorded for cable broadcast and also shown on YouTube at a later date. This evening we are doing a remote meeting. We have our other members right now. They're on the telephone, so I'm going to call the meeting to order at 6:03 p.m. And if you would, please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
I had a little flag right here.
All right.
I got a whole street full.
So, gentlemen, I'm going to entertain a motion at this time to confirm the next meeting date of May 20th, 2020.
I will make a motion to have the next meeting date on Wednesday, May 20th at 6 p.m.
Mr. Bonner has made a motion to confirm the next meeting date. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded by Mr. Woods. Any further discussion on the next meeting date? Hearing none, let's vote.
What happened to May 6th? We're not going to have it.
No, we're going to push it back, Tom. We just felt that it was just a little bit too close to the possible ending of the May 4th date that the state has
Yeah,
set.
that makes sense.
So
okay.
we just wanted to push it back a little
And
bit.
just a comment for information. I was going to wait to public input, but at our May 20th meeting, we should probably set our summer schedule.
Correct.
Okay, sounds good. No further discussion from me.
So any further discussion from any of you two gentlemen, Mr. Woods or Mr. Figueredo?
Nope.
With that being said, let's vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? That motion carries. Unanimous.
Just two things, if you don't mind. First, we need to declare that we're due to the COVID, we are taking care of this, part of this through a conference call, doing the remote. So we need to declare that. The other thing we want to make sure that we do is with the votes that we take care of, because we have some people on the phone conference, that we have to do this by a roll call vote. So all votes that are made have to be done by roll call.
Thank you, Mrs. Easterday. So that being said, this meeting is also being remotely done by telephone, and the members will be asked to give their vote individually at that when the vote does come up for any subject. So,
If I could just for the record, make a suggest that a motion be made to be able to handle the meeting via remotely under the current circumstances. If someone could make that motion second and then do that, so that way it's on record that we have.
So how do you want the motion to
So the motion would be, forgive me. So we need a motion for the planning board meeting to hold tonight's meeting via teleconference with the three members, Joe Figueredo, Robert Woods, Thomas Pyers.
I will make a motion to hold tonight's planning board meeting via teleconference with two members present, myself and the chairman. And on teleconference, it is Mr. Figueredo, Mr. Woods, and Mr. Pyers.
gentlemen, do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded for the motion that was made. Do I hear a second?
Second, Tom Byers,
Okay, sorry,
second.
John. Motion is made and seconded by Mr. Tom Pyers. Any further discussion on that motion, gentlemen? Hearing none, with that being said, let's vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Pyers voted aye. Mr. Woods voted aye. Mr. Figueredo votes aye. Mr. Rhines votes aye, as well as Mr. Bona. Thank you, gentlemen. First order of
Correct,
business
thank
is number 4 is to review, discuss, and act on the Form A application for G. Lopes Construction Incorporated, 0 Maple Swamp Road map 1, lot 118. Now, gentlemen, you did receive the packet via email from Mrs. Easterday. And what we had asked for last meeting was to include some contours and the required information on a set of plans. And Mr. Barabee has provided those, MLP has provided those for us. And I just give everybody a second just to re-look over that set of plans again for those adjustments that have been made. And of course, you can see the zoning table is also added on a set of plans as well as the general notes that we had requested. You gentlemen have any questions on the plan submitted by G. Lopes?
I do not, Tom Byers.
Tom Pius does not. Mr. Figueredo?
Yes, I do have a question in regards to this. 2 lots, but one of them shows all wetland. Is that going to be not buildable, or what is the purpose?
No, those are, from what I understand, those are non-buildable lots.
Is he talking about lot 2?
Yeah, this discussion lot 2.
I know they are going before Concom too, so anything regarding the wetlands, I know they've been going for Concom on a different matter, I believe, or it could be wrong, let's see.
So is there a reason why they're subdividing it?
He's making one buildable lot.
He just wants to make one buildable lot out of the presentation on the plans.
Okay. No more questions.
Mr. Woods, do you have any questions in regards to the Form A?
No, I'm looking at the map and I see that there's an existing 20-foot wide drainage easement in the back of that lot. So I was just wondering whereabouts the building was going to go on this lot, and that's really my only question: is it all going to fit?
That would be,
If you're looking at the map, you'll see that 20-foot wide drainage easement.
Yeah, I see that.
It cuts right through that lot,
Correct.
almost in the middle of it.
You should be able to cross. You should be able to cross the drain.
I mean, if it's a Form A lot and it meets all the criteria, then that's fine, but it'll move from here to conservation or wherever it needs to go.
correct.
I'm just concerned about water.
Correct.
We've had enough trouble with water in Harris Lane and places like that.
Say that again.
So, I'm just a little leery, that's all.
Okay.
That's my only concern, is water.
Okay. So noted. Mr. Pyers, any questions?
No, I just kind of wish they had put as Mr. Woods said, to locate the 100 by 100 buildable spot on that lot. They had the building setback line there, and it looks like it should fit, but we don't know that. But then again, if it doesn't fit, then that's up to another department, I think, to
Right, exactly.
Correct.
establish that. So we're just looking at Form A right now. So that being said, I don't have any further questions or objections to this.
Okay. Gentlemen, any more questions before we take a vote? Okay, with that,
I'm all set on my end, Joe Figueredo.
okay, with that being said, gentlemen, I'm going to entertain a motion to accept the Form A as presented to the board.
I'll make that motion to accept the Form A of, I guess, G. Lopes Construction.
That was Mr. Pius. Motion's been made by Mr. Pius to accept the Form A application for G. Lopes Construction. Do I hear a second?
Yeah. I was at on Maple Swamp Road. I guess I should add to that.
Correct.
Okay.
Motion's been made by Mr. Joseph Figurito. Any further discussion on the application to Form A, the presentation of the Form A plan to the planning board? Hearing none, let's vote. We're gonna vote individually at this time. Mr. Woods, how do you vote?
I abstain.
Mr. Woods abstains. Mr. Figurito, how do you vote?
Hey,
Mr. Pires, how do you vote?
I'm voting in favor.
Mr. Figurito's in favor. Mr. Pires is in favor. Mr. Bona, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Bona votes aye. The chairman, Mr. Rhines, I vote aye. Let it be known the record states that the voting is 4-0 in favor of and 1 abstention. Thank you, gentlemen.
I'm sorry, Joe Figurator said no.
Joe Figurito said aye. Mr. Woods was an abstention. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. With that, we're going to move on to number B, which is public hearing. And that was scheduled for 6:15 p.m. and we are right at that time right now. And this is for BWC Greenbrook LLC Solar Site Plan Special Permit for 903 Tremont Street, Map 8, Lot Number 27, and 624 Middle Street, Map 8, Lot 31 and 80. Please be advised that due to the current state of emergency, this hearing will be opened and immediately continued to Wednesday, May 20th, 2020 at 6:15 p.m. There will be no presentations, discussion, or public input will be taking place at this time. So, gentlemen, I'm going to entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
I will make a motion to open the public hearing.
Mr. Bonus made a motion to open the hearing. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Robert Woods. Any further discussion on opening the public hearing? Let's vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Mr. Pius votes aye. Mr. Woods votes aye. Mr. Figurito votes aye. Mr. Bono votes aye. Mr. Rhines votes aye. That vote is 5-0. With that being said, gentlemen, at this time I'm going to entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Continue.
I'm sorry, to continue the public hearing. Continue the public hearing until May 20th, 2020.
I'll second that.
No, you gotta
No, you gotta
first.
make a motion.
Make the motion.
I make a motion to continue the public hearing for BWC Greenbrook LLC Solar Site Plan to Wednesday, May 20th at 6:15 p.m.
Motion by Mr. Bono. Do I hear a second, gentlemen?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Woods. With that being said, any further discussion? Hearing none, let's vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Tom Pires, aye.
Tom Pires, aye. Joe Figurito?
Robert Woods, aye.
Aye.
Thank you, gentlemen. Mr. Bono?
Aye.
Mr. Rhines? Aye. Thank you. Gentlemen, your packet, we're going to move on to letter C, which is review, discuss, and act, excuse me, on the award contract for on-call peer engineering review consulting services for the planning board. I just wanted to just say a few words before, as you guys are looking at your packets, you gentlemen, that I attended a Zoom conference meeting with Mrs. Easterday, our office manager, myself, and Mrs. Mallory Aaronstein, our town administrator. And it went very well. It was very well coordinated. Each interviewee had approximately, I would say, about an hour and a half discussion with us. And I've looked at the information provided, and I've come to my own conclusion on how I'm going to vote on this. And I'll just leave it up to you gentlemen to decide what you'd like to do.
Is this possible to know what that you're gonna vote in favor of it, right?
Mr. Figurito, that question has been posed. Mr. Figurito asked the question if I was going to vote in favor of, and yes, I am. I've looked at their information and re-looked at the meeting that was presented to us with the information provided by the presentee, And, yes, I'm gonna vote in favor.
I think it would
Was
be,
this also recommended by the town administrator?
That is correct. This was
'Cause
also
I'm
recommended,
reading the recommendation, that's why I'm.
yes, the recommendation was
Okay.
made also by the town administrator.
so I think it would be helpful for the public if you read the memorandum into record. And then that way it'll give the board a way to contemplate their vote, I guess.
So,
They wanna vote in for the recommendation, I guess that's.
gentlemen, I'm gonna read the memorandum. It was to the planning board, CC to the Board of Selectmen and Mallory Aaronstein, the town administrator. And this is from Kerry J. Easterday, our office manager, and this was dated April 13th of 2020. And a recommendation for peer review engineering services. On Wednesday, April 8th, 2020, interviews were conducted with Green International Affiliates Incorporated and BSC Group Incorporated in response to the town's request for proposals to provide on-call engineering peer review services for the planning board. In attendance were Mallory Aaronstein, the town administrator, Timothy Rhines, the planning board chairman, and Mrs. Terry Easterday, our office manager. The three of us conducted the interviews as a panel. Both firms met or exceeded the criteria required in the request for proposals, experience working with municipalities, and familiar with the town of Dayton. Each member of the panel agreed that Green International Affiliates Incorporated, parentheses, Green, stood out as particularly able to serve as the planning board's peer review engineer and to be able to provide services to the greatest benefit to the town. In Green's proposal, Courtney Semlow is named as the project manager. In addition to Mrs. Semlow's extensive experience as a peer review engineer starting in 2015, her core area of work focuses on stormwater pollution prevention. She is also a certified floodplain manager and serves on her local conservation commission, as many Green International employees do. Their engineering experience, coupled with their local interest and practical experience as a local leader, makes them best suited to be awarded the contract. Therefore, we recommend that the planning board vote to award the contract for peer engineering review to Green International Affiliates.
I could just say after I read this email, I went on LinkedIn and I looked the young lady up, and she has quite the lengthy amount of experience. So, with that being said, I will also vote to hire Green International as our peer review.
So, Mr. Bonner,
Second the motion.
motion has been made by Mr. Bonner and seconded by Mr. Pires. Any further discussion, gentlemen?
No, as far as I'm concerned, if you and Gary feel comfortable with that, along with Mrs. Aaronstein, I feel very comfortable with it as well.
Thank you, Mr. Figueredo. So, hearing no other, there's been a motion and a second, hearing no other discussion, let's vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye?
Right.
Gentlemen,
Aye.
all at one time, separately, please. Mr. Figueredo, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Pires?
I vote in favor.
Mr. Woods?
Aye.
Mr. Bona?
Aye.
Mr. Rhines? Aye. Thank you, gentlemen. The vote carries 5-0. You're gonna see that, there's been a couple of items that, we're not going to look at this evening, and we're gonna go to, letter F, and that's, to review, discuss, and act on a nomination for a Serpad at-large commissioner. Now, I'm going to, read some of the highlights of what, was sent down from Serpad. And this is a call for at-large commissioners, 2020 to 2021. And this was sent out to the mayors of community groups in the Serpent region, at-large delegates for Serpent commissioners. And this is from Mr. Alan Slavin, who's the Serpent chairman. This was dated March 23rd of 2020. And this is for nominations for the Serpent at-large commissioners. What they're asking for is they're seeking representatives of minority and low-income community groups to serve on the commission of the Southeastern Regional Planning and Economic Development District, And these appointments will take effect on the 22nd of May 2020 at Serped's annual meeting, continue through 22nd of May of 2021. Serped is a regional planning agency established by the legislature to provide regional planning and related planning technical assistance in transportation, land use, economic development, housing, and environmental concerns to 27 municipalities, 4 cities, and 23 towns that Serped serves. The commission is Serped's governing body and consists of municipal and community representatives who oversee the activities of the agency and address regional issues. The commission meets approximately 8 to 10 times per year on the 4th Wednesday of the month, and meetings are held at Serped's office in Taunton and begin at 6:30 p.m. This position, per the agency's bylaw, is a unique opportunity for individuals who represent and speak for traditionally disenfranchised minority and or low-income populations in housing and economic development planning processes, as well as area transportation investments, among other important areas. The opportunity is the all more significant because at-large commissioners are also voting members of the Joint Transportation Planning Group, JTPG, the advisory group to the Southeast Massachusetts Metropolitan Planning Organization, or SMMPO, for all transportation-related issues. The JTPG is the forum for citizen involvement in transportation planning and usually meets the second Wednesday of each month, likewise at Serped, beginning at 2 p.m. This commission bylaws provide for up to 6 at-large delegates representing low-income and minority group interests. There are 2 from the New Bedford area, 2 from the Fall River area, 1 for the Taunton area, and 1 for the Attleboro area. And you're going to see, gentlemen, in your packets is an attached sheet that outlines the criteria for the at-large appointees, and you or your organization may propose a person to sit on the commission who will be nominated by a member of the commission and confined by the body as a whole. So, gentlemen, you can just look through this and bruise through this. It does say that in the back on page 2 that the nominee must be a resident within one of the following sub-areas as appropriate. And you look at the end box that says the Taunton sub-area, which includes Taunton, Berkeley, Carver, Dayton, Lakeville, Middleborough, and Rainham. Currently serving as at-large commissioners from 2019 to 2020, the Attleboro sub-area had no appointment. Fall River had no appointment. From New Bedford, there were Patrick Sullivan, who was the Community Development Director. And from the Taunton sub-area was Janine Piccassini of OECD, Office of Economic and Economic Development Opportunity. Where did he go?
I have no idea.
No, he's still there. The nominee must be certified as a representative of a qualified low-income or minority group in writing. So, gentlemen, I'm going to have everyone take a look at this, and at this time, I think it would be appropriate to take this under advisement until our next meeting.
Now, this is totally separate than the normal appointment of a member from our town, correct?
That's correct, Mr.
Right.
Pius.
And can I speak now, Robert Woods?
Yes, Mr. Woods.
At last week's Board of Selectmen meeting, the Board of Selectmen voted to appoint me as the Serpent representative for the
You're
Board
on.
of Selectmen. And we were supposed to be voting tonight to appoint someone from the planning board, myself, I'm sure, to be the Serpent representative for the term going from May 22nd, 2020 to May 22nd. Let me see, I have the letter here from the town somewhere. May 22nd, 2021. And I sent Kerry those emails, and I forwarded them to Mallory. So the Board of Selectmen already took care of their end. But tonight, we need to vote on appointing me or another member of the planning board, the Serpent representative for the upcoming Serpent fiscal year. Along with this,
No,
this
Mr.
here is
Woods.
for
Okay, you're on.
yeah,
This is another thing that what you just read is another thing from Serpent, and they're looking for representative of a minority and low income community groups. That does not include Dayton, because we don't have a low income community.
They're looking for people from New Bedford, Fall River, Attleboro, and Pond. It's only
Right. You know, I think that there should have been something on the agenda tonight, and I'm sure it was just a glitch, to appoint someone from the planning board to serve as the Serpent representative.
It's, Robert, it is on there, it's the next order of action.
Oh, okay.
So that's the next order of action is the appointment for the Serpent Commission member. But
Oh, okay.
but we're, right now, we're just talking about this at-large,
Right,
at-large
right.
one
And
first.
I don't think that the town of Dayton meets that criteria,
Right.
because we're not a low income community.
Correct.
Okay, I have one question for Mr. Woods. Now, they appointed you as a regular member from the town of Dayton, not as a commissioner, correct?
No, they appointed me as a commissioner,
For the selectmen.
and I served two positions last year.
Yeah.
I was the planning board representative, and I was the board of selectmen's representative.
Correct.
Yeah, but it was for a member appointment, not for a commissioner.
You know,
What
commissioner.
we're discussing now.
No, it's not what we're discussing now.
No.
What we're
Correct.
discussing now
Correct.
is that it's different.
That's correct.
Okay.
So
Yeah, it does say the nominee must be certified as a representative of a qualified low-income or minority community group in writing.
So I don't think we qualify for
I
that.
don't, I would say no.
Right,
No,
that was,
I don't think so either.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Pires.
I'm going to make a motion at this time to table item 4F until further notice.
I'll
Motion-
second.
Motion has been made by Mr. Pires to table item 4F, and there's been a second by Mr. Boner. Gentlemen, a motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion on item 4F? Hearing none, let's vote. All in favor, say aye.
All right.
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Pires,
Yes, aye.
Mr. Woods,
Aye.
Mr. Figueredo,
Aye.
Mr. Boner,
Aye.
Mr. Rhines, aye. Sorry for the confusion out there, the public. We're just, we're new at this, so this has been an ongoing learning process for us all. So that being said, I'm going to move on to item 4G, and this is the review, discuss, and act on the 2020/2021 Serpent Commission member appointments. Now, Mr. Woods, in this conversation prior to this, had stated that the Board of Selectmen have already appointed Mr. Woods to serve as our representative to Serpent as a commission member appointments for the year of 2020 through 2021.
Let me butt in, Joe.
Sure.
I have the letter here in front of me. The Board of Selectmen appointed me to be their representative.
Correct.
So I'm the representative of the Board of Selectmen.
Okay.
Now we need to vote to nominate someone from the planning board, which last year, I served as both.
Correct. So,
Necessarily, some towns have the same person filling in both shoes.
okay.
Some towns use two different people. So if the board pleases and they want to appoint someone else and have two people go to the meetings, then we could do that too. But I can tell you right now, these meetings are very crowded and there's a lot of people there.
Okay.
And I know we're on camera and everything, but sometimes they're pretty boring.
I love you, Woody.
We love your honesty. We love your honesty.
Okay,
So,
I know, they send a report card on me too, So just so you know.
Okay, so with that being said, I'm going to entertain a motion to appoint Mr. Robert Woods as our Serpent Commission member for the year 2020 through 2021.
So moved.
Motion has been made by Mr. Bona. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded by Mr. Figueredo. Any further discussion on, let me ask this first. Mr. Woods, do you accept the appointment?
Yes.
Mr. Woods has accepted the appointment. There's been no further discussion. Let's vote. Singularly. Mr. Pires, how do you vote?
I vote in favor. Aye.
Mr. Woods?
Aye.
Mr. Figueredo?
Aye.
Mr. Bona?
Aye.
Mr. Rhines? Aye. That carries 5-0. Thank you, gentlemen. At this time, I'm going to move on to item number 5, which is the approval of the meeting minutes of March 18th, 2020. Do I hear a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of March 18th, 2020.
Motion by Mr. Thomas Pires. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Joseph Figueredo. Any further discussion on the approval of the meeting minutes of March 18th of 2020? Hearing none, let's vote. Gentlemen, singularly, Mr. Figueredo, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Pires?
Aye.
Mr. Woods?
Aye.
Mr. Bona?
Aye.
Mr. Rhines? Aye. Thank you. Under correspondence, I received a letter. This was stated to me, and this is from the LSC Environmental Consulting Group, and this was from March 30th of 2020. Dated Chairman Timothy Rhines, Planning Board, 979 Somerset Avenue, Dayton, Mass. 02715. This is in reference of wetland soil testing at 1727 William Street, map 16, lot 23, Dayton, Mass. Dear Chairman Rhines, as requested by the owner, Antone Roderick, I conducted a site reconnaissance on property located at Assessors Map 16, lot 23, in Dayton, Massachusetts, the site, in parentheses, on September 11th and September 25th of 2019. The purpose of the site evaluation was to identify wetland resource areas protected under the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and its implementing regulations, which is in parentheses 3110 CMR, which is the Code of Mass Regulations 10, as well as the Town of Dayton Wetland Bylaw. This letter was written in conjunction with the Open Space Development Plan prepared by Zenith Consulting Engineering Incorporated for Tony Roderick, titled Conceptual Layout, 1217 William Street, Dayton, Mass., dated January 15th, 2020. This is a 1 inch equals 50 feet on the scale. The plan will be submitted to the Conservation Commission for approval under a separate notice of intent. Site description: the approximate 15-acre site is located east of William Street, is in a mostly residential part of Dayton. The site is comprised of upland field and woodland and one bordering vegetated wetland in the eastern portion of the site. The bordering vegetated wetland, in parentheses BVW, was delineated with pink vinyl flagging. Flags numbered WF-A1 to WF-A49 and WF-B1 to WF-B15 will hung to delineate the edge of the mostly wooded wetland. There is one upland island to the east of a portion of the bordering vegetated wetland. This bordering vegetated wetland is contiguous to a larger swamp that continues off-site to the north and east. Water-stained leaves, as well as some standing surface water in places, were observed within the bordering vegetated wetland at the time of the delineation. The proposed project is the site contains approximately 15 acres with 10 acres of upland and 5 acres of wetland. A conservation subdivision as designed will use approximately 3 acres of the 15 acres. The applicant is proposing an advanced common septic for 9 lots, in parentheses, 9. He is also proposing to donate approximately 10 acres for conservation land. As proposed, the necessary and the project will incorporate a clear limit of disturbance with erosion controls. Please see the conceptual development plan for more information on the site specifics. According to the zoning bylaws of the Town of Dayton, Massachusetts, 4331 states, a development plan conforming to the requirements for a preliminary subdivision plan under the subdivision regulations to the planning board. Such plan shall indicate proposed topography, wetlands, and unless the development is sewered, the results of deep soil test pits and percolation tests at the rate of 1 per acre, but in no case fewer than 4 per conservation subdivision. Where wetland delineation is in doubt or dispute, the planning board shall require the applicant to submit to the Conservation Commission a request for determination of applicability pursuant to General Laws 131, Section 40, and 310 Code of Mass Regulations 10.05 parentheses 3. The planning board shall refer data on proposed wastewater disposal to the Board of Health for their review and recommendation. The planning board will also require, as part of the development plan, any additional information necessary to make the determinations and assessments cited herein. At the last planning board meeting on January 15, 2020, the planning board requested that the applicant perk all the conventional lots. At this time, the applicant has done 4 soil test holes. These test holes were completed in the field/project area. In order to complete the soil test holes in the area beyond the wetland in the proposed open space area of the upland island, the applicant would need to cross several portions of the wetland and cut some vegetation, including woody vegetation. We estimate approximately 2,500 square feet of wetlands would need to be altered to access this area for soil test holes. This wetland disturbance and crossing is avoidable by keeping the soil test holes in the area of the proposed development. Currently, we are requesting a waiver to allow the applicant to only do soil test holes in the field area/project area. We are requesting this because it appears to be in line with the purpose of the Dayton Planning Board's intent of the conservation subdivision design as shown below. According to the zoning bylaws of the town of Dayton, Massachusetts, Section 4310 states the purpose of this Section 4300 conservation subdivision design is to encourage the preservation of open land for its scenic beauty and to enhance agricultural, open space, forestry, and recreational use, to preserve historical and archaeological resources, to protect the natural environment, to protect the value of real property, to promote more sensitive siting of buildings and better overall site planning, to perpetuate the appearance of Dayton's traditional New England landscape, to allow landowners a reasonable return on their investment, to facilitate the construction and maintenance of streets, utilities, and public services in a more economical and efficient manner, and to promote the development of housing affordable to low and moderate income families. Thank you for your opportunity to work with you on this project. Please contact me if you have any questions regarding this work or if you require additional information regards LSC Environmental Consulting. Lisa S. Caledonia, Principal Scientist.
Can I get somebody to send me a copy of that, please?
Yes, I will.
Absolutely, Mrs.
Forward it to the entire board.
Mrs. Easterdale will put that in the PDF and forward that to the entire board. So at this time, I'm going to entertain a motion to table this until our next meeting of May 20th, 2020.
I will make a motion to table the LSC Environmental Consulting letter until our next meeting on May 20th.
Motion's been made by Mr. Bona. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion to be made and seconded by Mr. Figueredo. Any further discussion on the topic? Hearing none, let's vote. Gentlemen, Mr. Figueredo, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
Mr. Woods?
Aye.
Vice Chairman Pires?
Aye.
Mr. Bona?
Aye.
Mr. Rhines? Aye. That carries 5-0. We have nothing on the public input. Gentlemen, I'm going to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion's been made by Mr. Woods. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Figueredo. Any further discussion on the adjournment? Gentlemen, singularly, Mr. Figueredo, how do you vote? I'm sorry, excuse me. Vice Chairman Pires, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Figueredo?
Aye.
Mr. Woods?
Aye.
Mr. Bona?
Aye.
Mr. Rhines? Aye. Thank you, gentlemen. Again, just as a reminder, our next meeting will be on May 20th, 2020 at 6 p.m. If there's any changes, I'll be in touch. Before I do adjourn this meeting completely, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank our office manager, Mrs. Carrie Easterday, for her due diligence in working from home and keeping not only myself, but Mr. Pyers, the vice chairman, and the board alerted to everything that's been going on with the committee since we've been dealing with this COVID-19 situation. So, again, my hat is off to our office manager. Thank you, Mrs.
Thank you,
Easterday.
Gary.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Great
Gary.
job.
Gentlemen, we'll see you next month. Cable, thank you very much.